So my question is in regards to dollars and action. I always hesitate about how much to say because I don't know how far back. I know you don't want to hear a whole history, but I quit where I was working about a year ago because I really like to be on my own and I like freedom and spontaneity and I've had a hard time with any projects that I've conjured up. I love being the visionary and coming up with the idea and the plan, but not really anything beyond that.
All right, now in light of what you just heard from us, as we were talking about life is now, my point of attraction is now, the universe is responding to me now, what parts of what you just offered to us do you think are utilizing now in the best way, and what parts of what you just offered to us just now are not? He just wants to get that a little closer to you. Breathe deeply, yes. The closer it gets, the more you whisper, but
coming up with the ideas and seeing the finished product and seeing people read it and being uplifted by it and having fun. And
so as you were now we're just, for sake of benefit for everyone, you too, just going to replay what you just said to us since you've been sitting here. And you talked about how you left your work because you want more freedom and adventure. But in that statement and in that remembering leaving, it could go either way, couldn't it? In other words, you could be offering the vibration of the freedom of and the adventure, or you could be offering the vibration of the sort of tentative, precarious position it feels like to not have that steady income. So which do you think was dominant as you began? It's all right, there's no right or wrong here.
Oh, for sure, the freedom and excitement and not knowing.
In that case, this statement was a very good utilization of your now. So as we sit here and visit together, what do you think is the best use of this powerful now? To anticipate what is coming and to talk about positive probabilities, or to wonder about what you're doing or worry about how it's coming? In other words, what's the best use of the time now?
Thinking about positive aspects, the things that are to come.
It's just ridiculously simple. It's just ridiculously simple. In other words, there's no other way of getting around it. It is so obvious to everyone that the best use of my time right now is to talk about what I want and why I want it, or to talk about anything that pleases me, whatever it is. In other words, there's just no. And so what do you think it is that makes the practical-minded human want to explore so many other options? We can tell you. It is because you were born into an environment of variety in order to give birth to the new idea. In other words, both parts are a necessary part of the equation, aren't they? It's necessary to have the exposure that makes you ask, but you're wanting to put all of your emphasis upon getting into a place of allowing. So we will hear you. We're just wanting to get that out there in a very clear way, because there's something about the clarity of that which is you and the purity of the desire that you hold that makes it really easy for us to know the certain positive, powerful outcome of your desire. And we hear it and feel it so powerfully, we want to reflect it back to you in a way that you know it so powerfully that you don't for a moment again feel any insecurity or worry. You see, we wish for you that you know about you what we know about you.
Me too. Well, I have about 2 months left of
now I'm doing it, aren't you? You see how easy it is? You see how easy it is to slip back into that I've got to make it happen fast, or I'm worried that it might not?
Yeah.
That damn reality, that truth, that the truth of it is I've got 2 months of funds. So shouldn't I keep contemplating that? And we say, all we're asking is the simple question, as you're approaching this powerful moment in time, what's the best utilization of now? Can you feel how it feels to think about only 2 months of money left? And can you feel how it feels to talk about other options, any other options? You see, the reason that we began speaking so powerfully about the game of virtual reality is for this example exactly. Because when you talk about employment or dollars, you cannot help but activate there's only 2 months left, because that's how you feel. So in order to deactivate that, we don't think you can activate it by thinking about employment or money. We don't think it's possible. We don't think it's possible to think about more dollars in a way that will offset how you feel about dollars, not right now. So do you believe us when we say that you've been asking?
Mm-hmm.
And do you believe us when we say that Source has heard and is answering?
Yeah.
So can you hear that the best method for you now is to get off the subject where you just don't activate that subject at all? That you've got a better chance, and it's a really good chance, of letting in what you want by just not activating that subject at all.
Yes. I even asked my husband after 10 years to please pay all the household accounts. I said, I don't even want to go to the mailbox. I don't want to look at anything. Don't discuss anything that has to do with dollars for me. Just, I'll slip you a note when I need some and give them to me.
So what might you talk about that would activate allowance within you? Do you have any ideas? In other words, are there any subjects that you can go to easily that put you in a place of allowing?
Yeah. It could be anything. Are you asking for anything?
The easier the better. But here's a powerful point that we want to make, because we think this is what is screwy in the minds of physical humans. You think that you've got to think about, talk about, act about things about money in order to earn money, with the subject being earning. And what we would like to say to you is, rather than earn, we would rather that you think of it in terms of allowing, but you can use the word earning if you want to. You will earn your money, you will earn your money success by finding thoughts that feel good. In other words, it's sort of like saying 15 30-second visualizations will earn you the interview you're looking for, unless you're doing the visualization to try to earn the interview, and now you've activated that. You see? Yes, anything that feels good easily. Where would you like to take us?
Well, when I was flying here, I've never been to New York. And when we were coming into Albany, I had to cover my mouth because I just had this ridiculous little smile and giggle, because from up there, everything looks like all is well. Like there was the right amount of trees and water and all the homes were right. And I don't know, it was just beautiful. And so that was a good thing. Anytime talking about my cat or dog, often to the disappointment of many people who don't like cats and dogs.
It's an interesting thing, though, isn't it? That so here you are in this, what feels like a financial predicament, where you have stopped doing something that was earning in your quest for freedom, and now it feels like in order to bring it around to the way you want it, you need to talk about that subject. Only talking about that subject just activates you where you are and doesn't let it happen. And it's hard to equate that you could use this moment in time just to talk about any pleasurable thing, and that that's the best way to let the money in. And yet that is the best way to let the money in.
Can miracles happen in a couple of months? Is it possible? Have you seen it?
Well, it happens all the time, but not to those who call it miracle.
What do they call it?
The next logical step. They say things like, there's no reason in the world that everything that I want shouldn't flow easily to me. They say things like, good things always happen to me. But you have to step back from the specifics of it enough that it would feel miraculous, and into things that, in other words, you're wanting to amplify the well-being that already exists in your experience. Because by emphasizing what already is working, you de-emphasize anything that you feel is not working. It's sort of like saying, well, I've been in situations like this before and things always work out for me. Or I suppose that there have been many people who have stood right where I'm standing and it has worked out perfectly for them. But you don't want to hit it too head on because you don't want to stir. You see, we're sort of making you worried because we're making it look like it has to be such an exact science, and we can feel that you're afraid that you're going to get it wrong. And what we would like to say to you is, there is no way possible that you will not have the success that you are looking for. It is absolute, it is certain, it is our absolute promise to you. The only variable is the time factor. And the time factor has to do with how quickly you get happy or deactivate the parts of your experience that make you feel unhappy and just allow it to be. So how can I distract myself from things I'm worried about in order to allow what I'm really wanting? Why does this matter so much? I don't know. Well, you're a deliberate creator. You're used to things working out, but do you have someone, in other words, do you feel like you made a decision that you shouldn't have made and now you're trying to compensate for having made a wrong decision?
No.
So do you think you made the right decision?
Yes.
So talk to us about that. Pat yourself on the back. Let's goose that up a little bit, because we know you made the right decision.
Can you ask some questions?
What is it about having quit your job that makes you the happiest every day?
Well, I like the idea of getting up in the morning and not really knowing what's going to unfold. I had heard Jerry say on a tape a long time ago that when he was going to ask when he was going to describe what he wanted, he said, I don't really want my foot nailed to the floor. I don't like that either. I like very much freedom and spontaneity, and my husband is an actionary to the very core of his being, and he'll show me on his computer that he just set it up so that when he turns it on, his calendar comes up and it's packed with appointments and things to do, and he goes, isn't this great? I said, yeah, it'd be great if it were blank. So that's sort of how I like. But I also, I love being an uplifter, and I'd like to do it in a bigger way. I'd like to do it with something that's written perhaps on a monthly basis, but I haven't been able to take the action to make it happen. And of course, my husband says, just write it down and say you're going to do this by then. And it's just not in alignment somehow.
Do you think that there is conflict between your approach to life and your husband's approach to life? In other words, do you suspect that he might be right and you might be wrong?
Not individually. I feel so much more comfortable when I'm in alignment with who I am and what feels good for me than trying to hammer, into the way he does it. But so far, he does get results and bring in dollars and publish things, and he'll talk about something. His distance from talking about it and doing it is very short.
So is it possible that the action is not the big factor that it feels like? In other words, full calendar and not wanting a full calendar. Can you accept that some way or other he's found his alignment, and some way or other you're wanting to find your alignment?
Yes.
And can you feel that it might be your perception that he's going about it in a better way? In other words, you've got yourself in that place, this misalignment that you're feeling. We can tell you exactly what it is. It is that you want the feeling of freedom and you want the feeling of making your own day, but you worry that you need to do it a different way. In other words, it's like saying, I want to do it this way, this feels best, but I worry that this is actually a better approach because I'm seeing someone get results with this other approach. Do you think it is anything like that?
A little like that.
We have more questions for you. When you begin your day, do you have a list of things that you plan to do that day?
No.
When you begin your day, do you think you have a sense of the way you would like the day to unfold? In other words, do you think that there is clarity about what you want in your day? Because if you don't have action goals in terms of things that you're going to do you have result goals or feeling goals in terms of the way you want the day to feel to you?
Yes.
And could you describe that?
Yes, I always want to feel good. I either put a little sticker on my hand or I have a little rubber stamp of a smiley face just to sort of remind me. But I do notice that sometimes if I get up and there's not specific things that need my attention, and I sort of floated throughout the day and it wasn't, even though the majority of the time I really do feel good, contrary to how I may look up here.
Well, we can feel that we understand that we are fine-tuning here. We think what you are bringing to this forum, which is absolutely a forum on the leading edge, and the leading edge thing that you are drawing forth in this forum is this. You are amplifying in a very powerful and important way the dilemma that people are finding between the idea of action and non-action. In other words, that's what you're wrestling and clarifying here. And we've offered quite a few words about it, but we're going to offer some very leading edge words about it here in response to you, because here is what this action thing is all about. Someone said to us just recently, I know that action isn't the way I make things happen, but very often when I throw myself into action, I do feel better. And we say, well, somehow you're finding some sort of alignment. Sometimes you can throw yourself into action and you feel worse. Sometimes you can throw yourself into action and you can feel better. And you have to individually decide which is which. As you think in terms of making things happen, you've been listening to us and others, and you know it from your own internal dialogue that you are wanting to allow things into being. In other words, we can feel that you really believe or want to believe that step 1 has been asked and that step 2 has been answered, and now you're in the place where you're really wanting to allow it to be.